I'm standing here tonight thinking about something I've never said out loud. I've built things, I've solved problems, I've made decisions that moved mountains. But when it comes to her, when it comes to us, I can't pretend I have it all figured out. I'm not perfect, I mess up, I say the wrong thing at the wrong time, I get distracted when I should be present. I forget anniversaries, I let my work consume me. I've been selfish more times than I care to admit. But here's what I know with absolute certainty. My love for her is the most real thing I've ever felt. It's not polished. It's not Instagram worthy. It's cracked and messy and raw. And maybe that's exactly what makes it true, because perfect love doesn't exist. But real love, that's the only thing worth fighting for. So let me tell you what I've learned about loving someone when you're broken, when you're flawed, when you're human. I used to think love was something you earned by being flawless. Like if I worked hard enough, if I said the right things, if I never disappointed her, then I'd deserve her. I spent years trying to be that guy. The one who never loses his temper, the one who always remembers, the one who balances ambition and presence without breaking a sweat. You know what happened? I failed. Over and over again, and every time I failed, I thought I was losing her. But here's what nobody told me. She didn't fall in love with some airbrushed version of me. She fell in love with the guy who stays up too late, solving problems that might not even matter. The guy who gets so focused on a project that he forgets to text back. The guy who overthinks everything and sometimes shuts down instead of opening up. She saw all of that, and she chose me anyway. That's when I realized something that changed everything. Love isn't about hiding your cracks. It's about letting someone see them and trusting they won't run. It's about standing in front of another human being and saying, "This is me, unfiltered, unfinished, still learning," and then watching them stay. I think about this cracked mirror I saw once. It was in an old building I visited years ago. The glass was shattered in places, held together by the frame. And when you looked into it, your reflection came back distorted. But you could still see yourself. You could still recognize your face. That's what real love feels like to me now. It's not a pristine mirror that reflects perfection. It's a cracked one that shows you exactly who you are, scars and all, and somehow makes you feel seen in a way nothing else can. Have you ever felt that too? That pressure to be perfect for someone you love? To hide the parts of yourself that feel too messy or too complicated? I lived there for so long, and it was exhausting, because pretending to be flawless doesn't make you lovable. It just makes you lonely. So I stopped pretending. I started telling her the truth. When I'm overwhelmed, I say it. When I mess up, I own it. When I don't have the answers, I admit it. And you know what? The relationship got stronger. Not weaker, stronger. Because honesty is the foundation of trust, and trust is the only thing that lets love breathe. But here's the hard part: letting go of your ego, admitting when you're wrong, saying I'm sorry and actually meaning it. That's where most people fail. Because we're taught that being vulnerable is being weak, that admitting fault is losing. But in love, it's the opposite. Vulnerability is strength, apology is courage, and being honest about your limitations is the most powerful thing you can do. I remember one night we had this fight. It wasn't even about anything big, just one of those moments where two tired people say things they don't mean. And I had a choice. I could defend myself, argue my point, make it about being right, or I could look at her and say what I actually felt. So I did. I told her I was scared. Scared of not being enough. Scared of letting her down. Scared that one day she'd wake up and realize she deserves someone better. And when I said it out loud, something shifted. The tension broke. Because she wasn't mad at me for being imperfect. She was frustrated that I kept pretending I wasn't. Tell me, when was the last time you actually let someone see you struggle? Not the filtered version where you have it all together. The real version. The one where you don't have the answers, and you're just trying to figure it out as you go. That's the version worth loving, because that's the version that's real. I've learned that love doesn't require perfection. It requires presence. It requires you to show up, even when you're not at your best, even when you're tired or anxious or uncertain. It requires you to stay in the room when every instinct tells you to run, because running is easy, staying is hard. And anything worth having requires you to do the hard thing. People talk about love like it's this grand romantic gesture, like it's flowers and candlelit dinners and perfect Instagram moments. And sure, those things are nice, but real love is quieter than that. It's the way she looks at you when you're stressed and doesn't try to fix it, just sits with you. It's the way you learn her coffee order by heart, even though she changes it every week. It's the way you apologize, even when you're only half wrong, because being right matters less than being connected. But here's what I want you to understand. My imperfections don't disqualify me from loving her. They make my love more honest, because I'm not offering her some fantasy version of partnership. I'm offering her the truth. The truth that I'll mess up, the truth that I'll need patience, the truth that I'm still learning how to be a better partner every single day. And in return, she gives me the same honesty. She tells me when I'm distant, when I'm working too much, when I need to slow down and just be present. And I listen, not because I'm perfect at it, but because I'm committed to trying. That's the difference between performative love and real love. Performative love is about looking good. Real love is about being good. And being good doesn't mean being flawless. It means being intentional. It means choosing her every single day, even on the days when it's inconvenient. Even on the days when your ego wants to win the argument. Even on the days when you'd rather focus on work than have the difficult conversation. Wait before you move on. Hear this. Your flaws don't make you unlovable. They make you human. And the right person doesn't need you to be perfect. They need you to be honest. They need you to show up. They need you to care enough to keep trying even when you fall short. Because love isn't a destination where you arrive fully formed. It's a practice. A daily choice to be vulnerable, to be present, to be real. I'm not perfect, but my love for her is real. And in the end, that's the only thing that matters. There's this fear that lives in the back of my mind. It whispers late at night when she's asleep next to me. It says, "You're going to ruin this. You're going to say the wrong thing, forget something important, be too consumed by your work, and one day she'll realize she made a mistake choosing you." I've tried to silence that voice. I've tried to outwork it, outsmart it, prove it wrong. But the truth is, the voice isn't lying. I will mess up again. I will disappoint her. I will fall short of who I want to be. And that terrified me for the longest time. Until I realized something crucial. That fear was rooted in the belief that love is conditional. That it exists only as long as I perform perfectly. That one mistake, one failure, one moment of weakness would be the end. But that's not how real love works. Real love doesn't demand perfection. It demands authenticity. And authenticity means accepting that you're going to fail sometimes and choosing to be honest about it instead of hiding behind excuses. I think about the relationships I've seen crumble, the ones where people pretended everything was fine until it wasn't, where resentment built up because nobody wanted to admit they were struggling, where pride mattered more than connection. Those relationships didn't end because people were imperfect. They ended because people refused to be honest about their imperfections. They chose the comfort of pretending over the discomfort of truth, and pretending always has an expiration date. So I made a different choice. I decided that if this relationship was going to end, it wouldn't be because I lied about who I was. It would be because I showed her exactly who I am, and it wasn't enough. And you know what? That's a risk I can live with. Because at least it's honest. At least it's real. Do you know what takes more courage than being perfect? Being imperfect and staying anyway. Admitting you don't have all the answers. Saying I'm scared, or I don't know, or I need help. Those three sentences have saved my relationship more times than any grand gesture ever could. Because they strip away the ego. They remove the performance. They bring you back to what actually matters. Two people trying to build something real together. But here's what nobody told me. Growth doesn't happen in comfort. It happens in the moments when you're forced to confront who you are versus who you want to be. Every time I mess up with her, I have a choice. I can defend myself and make excuses, or I can look at the gap between my intentions and my actions and ask myself why it exists. That gap is where the work happens. That's where you become a better partner, not by being perfect from the start, but by being willing to learn from every mistake. I've learned more about myself from her than from any book or mentor or experience. Because she holds up a mirror that I can't look away from. When I'm being distant, she calls it out. When I'm prioritizing work over presence, she reminds me what actually matters. When I'm letting stress turn me into someone I don't recognize, she pulls me back. And every single time, my first instinct is to get defensive, to explain, to justify. But I've learned to pause, to breathe, to ask myself if she's right. And most of the time, she is. That's the thing about ego. It wants to protect you from discomfort. It wants to convince you that you're right, even when you're wrong. It wants to shield you from the pain of seeing your flaws. But ego is the enemy of growth. And in a relationship, ego is the enemy of intimacy. Because you can't be close to someone while you're busy defending yourself. You can't be vulnerable while you're building walls. You can't grow while you're pretending you've already arrived. And that's when everything I believed fell apart. I thought strength meant having all the answers. I thought being a good partner meant never struggling. I thought love was something you earned by being impressive. But none of that is true. Strength is admitting when you're lost. Being a good partner means staying present even when it's hard. And love? Love is something you build by being honest, not impressive. Look at me for a second. I'm not standing here telling you I've figured it all out. I'm standing here telling you I haven't. And that's okay. Because the goal isn't to be perfect. The goal is to be real. The goal is to love someone with such honesty that they never have to wonder if you're hiding something. They never have to question if you're being authentic. They just know. They feel it in the way you show up, in the way you apologize, in the way you try again even after you fail. I remember this moment a few months ago. We were sitting on the couch, not talking, just existing in the same space. And I looked at her and realized something. She wasn't with me because I was perfect. She was with me because I was present. Because in that moment, I wasn't thinking about work or projects or problems to solve. I was just there, with her. And that was enough. That moment taught me more about love than 1,000 perfect dates ever could. Because love isn't built in the highlight reel. It's built in the quiet moments, the ordinary ones, the ones where you're just two people choosing each other without any fanfare or applause. Have you ever noticed how the best relationships aren't the ones that look perfect from the outside? They're the ones that feel real from the inside, where both people can take off the mask and just breathe, where you don't have to curate your emotions or edit your thoughts, where you can say, I'm struggling today, and the other person doesn't try to fix you, they just sit with you. That's intimacy, not perfection. Presence. But here's the hard truth. You can't give that to someone if you haven't given it to yourself first. You can't be honest with another person if you're lying to yourself. You can't show up authentically if you're still pretending you're someone you're not. So the work starts with you, looking at yourself without flinching, acknowledging your flaws without shame, accepting that you're a work in progress, and that's okay, because everyone is. I used to think my imperfections were something to hide. Now I see them as invitations. Invitations for her to know me deeper, invitations for growth, invitations for real connection that goes beyond surface level attraction. Because when you let someone see your cracks, you give them permission to be cracked too. You create a space where both of you can be human, where both of you can struggle, where both of you can learn. And that space, that's where real love lives. I'm not perfect. I never will be. But my love for her doesn't need to be perfect, just needs to be true. And every single day, I wake up and choose truth. I choose honesty over ego. I choose presence over performance. I choose her over the version of me that wants to seem like I have it all together. Because I'd rather be real and imperfect with her than fake and polished with anyone else. There's a difference between knowing you're imperfect and actually living like it's okay. For years, I knew I had flaws. I could list them if you asked. But I still operated from this place of shame about them, like they were defects I needed to hide, things that made me less worthy of love, and that shame created distance. Because when you're ashamed of who you are, you can't let anyone get too close. You keep people at arm's length, show them the edited version, and hope they never see the full picture. But shame is a prison, and I was tired of living there. So I started doing something that felt dangerous at first. I started owning my flaws out loud, not in some self-deprecating way where I'm fishing for reassurance, but in a genuine, this is who I am and I'm working on it way. And something unexpected happened. The more honest I became about my imperfections, the safer she felt being honest about hers. The more I admitted where I struggled, the more space we created for both of us to be human. That's when I understood something fundamental about connection. It's not built on strength, it's built on shared vulnerability. When you pretend you have it all together, you force the other person to pretend too. But when you admit you're figuring it out as you go, you give them permission to do the same. And that's where real intimacy begins. In the space between two people who've stopped performing and started being. I'll be honest with you. Some days I wake up and I feel like I'm failing at everything. Work is demanding, life is complicated. And I look at her and think, she deserves someone who has more bandwidth, someone who isn't stretched so thin. But then I remember what she told me once. She said, I didn't choose you because you were easy. I chose you because you're real. Because when you're with me, I feel it. And that matters more than anything else. Those words changed everything for me because I realized I'd been measuring myself against the wrong standard. I thought I needed to be the guy who never struggles, who always has energy, who balances everything perfectly. But she didn't need that guy. She needed the guy who shows up honestly, who says I'm overwhelmed today, instead of pretending he's fine, who admits when he needs support, instead of trying to be invincible. Do you see the difference? One is about ego, the other is about truth. An ego might feel safer in the moment, but it slowly kills connection. Because you can't be close to someone you're lying to, even if the lies are small, even if they're just omissions. Every time you hide something, you put another brick in the wall between you. And eventually, you look up and realize you've built a fortress that keeps her out. I don't want a fortress, I want a home. And a home isn't built on perfection, it's built on trust, on knowing that when you walk through the door, you can put down the armor, you can exhale, you can be exactly who you are without judgment. That's what I'm trying to create with her. A space where both of us can stop performing and just exist together. But here's what nobody told me. That kind of space requires maintenance. You can't build it once and assume it'll last forever. You have to protect it, nurture it, choose it every single day. Because life will give you 1,000 reasons to retreat back into ego, to defend yourself, to prioritize being right over being connected. And every time you choose ego, you damage the space you've built. You create a crack in the trust. I've done that more times than I want to admit. I've chosen being right over being close. I've let my pride get in the way of my heart. I've prioritized my agenda over her needs. And every time, I've felt the distance it creates. That horrible feeling when you know you've hurt someone you love, and you have to decide if your ego is worth more than your relationship. It never is. But in the moment, it's hard to remember that. So I've developed this practice. When I feel myself getting defensive, I pause. I take 3 breaths, and I ask myself one question. Do I want to be right, or do I want to be close? That question has saved me countless times, because it cuts through all the noise and gets to the heart of what matters. And what matters is her. What matters is us. What matters is building something that lasts, not winning a moment that doesn't. Tell me, how many arguments have you had where you won but lost something bigger in the process? Where you proved your point but damaged the connection? I've been there too many times. And I've learned that every time you choose ego over intimacy, you pay a price. Maybe not immediately, but eventually. Because relationships don't end in one big explosion. They end in 1,000 small choices where you pick yourself over the other person. I don't want that. I want to be the kind of man who chooses her even when it costs me something. Even when it means admitting I'm wrong. Even when it means apologizing first. Even when it means letting go of my need to control the outcome. Because love isn't about control, it's about trust. And trust means letting go of the illusion that you can manage everything perfectly. Here's the truth I've come to accept. I can't predict the future. I can't guarantee I won't make mistakes. I can't promise I'll always get it right. But I can promise I'll always try. I can promise I'll show up. I can promise that when I fail, I'll own it and work to do better. and I can promise that my love for her is worth more to me than my pride ever could be. I think about those cracked mirrors again, how they show you a fractured reflection, but somehow it's more honest than a pristine one. Because life isn't pristine. People aren't pristine. Love isn't pristine. It's messy and complicated and full of moments where you have to choose between your comfort and your commitment. And every time you choose commitment, the cracks become part of the beauty instead of evidence of the damage. Look, I know this isn't the fairy tale version of love. It's not the movies where everything works out effortlessly. It's not the Instagram posts where everyone looks perfect all the time. But it's real. And real is better than perfect. Real means when you say I love you, it actually means something. It means you've seen the worst parts of each other and you're still choosing to stay. It means you're building something that can weather storms because it's rooted in truth, not fantasy. Some feelings don't need words, but some feelings need to be said out loud or they die in silence. So I tell her. I tell her when I'm scared, when I'm struggling, when I feel like I'm not enough. And she listens. Not to fix me, not to judge me, just to witness me. And in that witnessing, I feel more loved than I ever did when I was pretending to be perfect. You know exactly what I mean. That relief when someone sees all of you and doesn't run. When they understand your flaws aren't deal breakers, they're just part of your story. When they choose you not despite your imperfections, but with full knowledge of them. That's the kind of love worth fighting for. That's the kind of love that actually lasts. Because it's not built on an illusion, it's built on reality. And reality might be imperfect, but at least it's true. I'm not perfect, but my love for her is real. And I'm learning that real love doesn't require me to be flawless. It just requires me to be honest, present, and willing to grow. That's enough. That has to be enough. Because anything else is just performance. And I'm done performing. I've been thinking about what it means to actually love someone when you're still learning how to love yourself. Because that's the reality most of us live in. We're not finished products. We're not fully healed. We're not completely figured out. We're somewhere in the middle of our own journey, trying to build something meaningful with another person who's also in the middle of theirs. And that's complicated because how do you give someone your best when you're still discovering what your best even is? I used to think I needed to have everything sorted out before I could be a good partner, that I needed to fix all my issues, resolve all my trauma, become the fully actualized version of myself. And then, once I was whole, I could offer that wholeness to someone else. But that's not how it works. Because growth isn't linear. Healing isn't a destination. You don't arrive at a place where you're suddenly perfect and ready. You just keep evolving. And if you wait until you're perfect to love someone, you'll wait forever. So I had to accept something uncomfortable. I had to accept that I'm going to be learning and growing for the rest of my life. And that means she's going to be with me through that process. She's going to see me struggle. She's going to witness my setbacks. She's going to experience the moments when I regress into old patterns I thought I'd overcome. And I had to trust that she could handle that she wasn't looking for someone finished. She was looking for someone committed to the journey. That shift changed everything because it took the pressure off. I didn't have to pretend I had it all figured out. I didn't have to hide the fact that I'm still working through things. I could just be honest about where I am and trust that it was enough. And you know what? It was. Because she wasn't measuring me against some impossible standard of perfection. She was measuring me by my effort, by my intention, by my willingness to keep trying, even when it's hard. Have you ever noticed how we hold ourselves to standards we'd never hold anyone else to? If a friend came to you and said, I messed up today, you'd probably say, it's okay, you're human. But when you mess up, you tell yourself you're a failure. When she makes a mistake, I see it as proof that she's real. When I make a mistake, I see it as proof that I'm not enough. That double standard has to stop, because if I can't extend grace to myself, I'll never truly believe she can extend it to me either. Learning to be gentle with myself has been one of the hardest parts of this journey, because I'm wired to be hard on myself, to push, to demand more, to never be satisfied. That drive has helped me accomplish things, but it's also created this internal environment where nothing I do feels good enough, where every win is immediately followed by what's next. where rest feels like failure. And that mentality bleeds into relationships. Because if I can't be satisfied with my own progress, how can I be present for hers? If I'm always chasing the next milestone, how can I appreciate the moment I'm in? So I've been practicing something new: pausing, celebrating small wins, acknowledging progress instead of only focusing on what's left to do. And I've been trying to bring that same energy into the relationship. Instead of always focusing on what we need to improve, I'm trying to notice what's actually working. The way we communicate better than we did 6 months ago. The way we navigate conflict with more maturity. The way we've built routines that make both of us feel supported. Those things matter, and they deserve to be recognized. But here's what I want you to understand. Recognizing progress doesn't mean settling. It doesn't mean you stop growing. It just means you acknowledge how far you've come before you focus on how far you have to go. Because growth is a marathon, not a sprint. And if you never celebrate the distance you've covered, you'll burn out before you reach your potential. I think about relationships the same way I think about building something meaningful in the world. You don't build a company in a day. You don't change an industry overnight. You make progress incrementally. You learn from failures. You adjust your strategy. You stay committed even when it's hard. And over time, those small, consistent efforts compound into something significant. Love works the same way. You don't build a lasting relationship in a moment. You build it in 1,000 small moments where you choose connection over convenience. Every time I apologize when I don't want to. Every time I put my phone down when she's talking. Every time I ask about her day and actually listen instead of waiting for my turn to speak. Every time I choose vulnerability over self-protection. Those moments might seem small, but they're not. They're the foundation. They're what turns attraction into partnership and partnership into something that lasts. Don't deny it. You know the relationships that inspire you aren't the ones that look perfect on the surface. They're the ones where you can feel the depth, where you know both people have done the work, where you sense that they've been through things and come out stronger. That's what I want. I want a relationship with depth, with history, with scars that have healed into something beautiful. And you don't get that by avoiding challenges. You get that by facing them together. There was this night a while back. We had one of those conversations that went deep, the kind where you're both exhausted, but you know you have to keep talking because something important is happening. And at one point, she looked at me and said, "I need to know you're not going to run when things get hard." And I could have said, "I promise I won't." But that felt too easy, too generic. So instead, I said, "I can't promise I won't want to. I can't promise I won't feel the urge to protect myself by creating distance. But I can promise I'll fight that urge. I can promise I'll choose to stay even when staying is uncomfortable." That answer was more honest. And I think that's why it mattered. Because promises aren't about guaranteeing you'll never struggle. They're about committing to stay in the struggle instead of running from it. Anyone can love someone when it's easy. The question is, will you love them when it's hard? Will you stay when your ego wants to leave? Will you be vulnerable when every instinct tells you to build walls? I'm learning the answer to those questions in real time. And some days I get it right. Some days I stay when I want to run. I'm honest when I want to hide. I'm present when I want to escape into work. Those days, I feel like I'm living up to who I want to be. But other days I fail. I get defensive. I shut down. I choose comfort over connection. And on those days, I have to wake up the next morning and try again. That's the practice. That's the work. Not being perfect, just being willing to keep trying.